the themes that you want to push forward. Ilektra, yes. I leave you the floor to introduce this session.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our Seminar Academy. I hope you're all fresh and ready for this next day. We're going to start with a session on the digitalization of agri-food, a very important sector, especially for the Southern Europe. It's a sector that is one of the least digitalized, but this doesn't mean that the digitalization doesn't offer a lot of opportunities for the companies in the sector. To start with a global overview of the digitalization in the agri-food sector, we are having with us Taoufik Arif. He used to be lead for digitalization and Industry 4.0 in Nestlé, and he's going to give us the first presentation. Would you like to start?
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So I don't know if the mic is Morning, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed yesterday evening and you are fresh for today. It's good to start with the food topic in the morning, isn't it? So as already presented, my name is Taoufik. So I was leading the digitalization in Nestlé as a group. And after consultancy, I'm joining again another group of Agri, Olam, as a VP also for digitalization. So this morning, I will walk you through the digital, what does it mean for the agri-food, especially in manufacturing and industry. I hope some of you are in touch with industry and business on this sector. And the reason why also digitalization have some opportunities in this sector. Can you imagine how much the industry of food today, the total food industry, in total in the world, how it is represented in rates? I want to ask you the question again, but still it's 3% only. So you see 97% still to be explored on this sector. So that, therefore, the industry and business to do in this area is very important, and there is opportunities for everybody. And so the digitalization as an enabler to boost being growth or profitability on this business is key to get in. So there is no other options anyway, not only for food, but other businesses. So I'll take just a few minutes to walk you through what does it mean for manufacturing. And later, if there is a questions, I would be happy to answer. So. Yeah, okay. So as an agenda, we will go through three things just to answer maybe to some of the few questions you may have. The purpose of digital in food as a business. Why we are doing it. This is very important. Digital is not done for digital itself. It's not for the sake of the digital. It has to have a purpose. And specifically today, on food business, what does it mean in the context of the food business? Second part is about what is it digital, to try a little bit, a short time, to demystify what does it mean. Many people will tell you an e-book is also digital. Others will tell you that an Excel sheet is also a digital. And definition will go longer and longer. So we'll try within this food business industry to scope it, to have a clear understanding. And the last part is how to go for the digitalization. This is key. Yeah? I can have my tools, my partners, but how I will implement it in my business, in my industry. So these are the three topics. I may miss others, but so far today, we'll focus on this one. So let's start with the business context in agri-food. As I told you before, 97% still to be explored in this business. Therefore, many stakeholders first are now engaged in this business because there is an opportunity, business opportunity. Two, the change in the mega trends on food and the relationship with foods. You all here in the room I'm sure that you think also consider the food not only a necessity, but also a pleasure of life, a way to treat yourself in a well-being also better, to live better. So this is something that changed in the last, I would say, 10, 15 years. These are a kind of mega trends. Also buying food products, it's not only about cost, but also about value. What I'm getting from this food as a product, is it for nutrition good for me? And the good for me is also becoming very important in with corporate and the individualization or personalization of products. So people want to eat the product that fits themselves personally. So imagine to make this industrially also cost effective to produce for you individuals here your own coffee, breakfast, cereals, whatever it is. It is a challenge. Huh? And while also digital there can help to get it and to make business from it. Competitors and investors are now varied. There is a lot of variety now of investors in this business. It's not anymore the big players, so I know that I'm coming from one of these big players. However, it is also competing with the very small ones and all around the world. So imagine you have maybe 100 billion turnover as a company, but you are competing about millions of millions that they have maybe a turnover of 200,000 euros. So it starts to be also a big competitor, this small investor. They are flexible, very agile, okay, changing product from few months to another one, while the big ones, the Unilevers, the Olams, the Nestlés, had a hard time to compete with these ones. And this is again a reality of this business. In adding to that, the new hedge funds get into this also food business because it's interesting as a business in terms of profitability. 3G, to not name just one of them, is now the largest food company because it owns the three big ones now with the turnover of above $100 billion. So you see the games or the rule of the competition changed on this business as well for the last 5 to 10 years. Last part is technology. If I will ask you here in the whole room, who is having a smartphone today, you will all raise your hands. Who is using LinkedIn? Who is connected at home? High tech even more than better than the office. Everybody. So this is a fact beyond food. So everybody is using technology outside, and we want also to use it in our life. So this is a fact, and it is impacting actually the business itself. So these are, let's say, the key trends or context of the business, and it leads us to some shift in industry, in food, and also in other businesses. So in terms of production, we're moving from mass production to, I was talking about individualization, which is the extreme. So something will be already on the middle, and it is happening now, kind of customization, small batches of production, and retail, so till the on-demand and individualized product, which is some happening, a very small niche today, but it is extending more and more. The fragmentation of information on products. Today, all consumers need to know where the products are made, from which raw material, in which country. Everybody wants to know exactly what they're eating. So it's not anymore just a label with the ingredients on the product. So everybody wants to know the whole value chain. Who's the farmer that was making these little ingredients in nuts or coffee or cocoa for chocolate, everything. And this transparency in information, one, it brings visibility to everybody, and two, consumers becomes a need for consumers to buy. If they do not know the information, they don't buy a product. And this is start to becoming a fact. So imagine a whole value chain from farmers around the world till the final product to get this traceability. The trades itself changes from the retailers, so the Carrefours, the Tesco, and the Walmart. Now we have the omni-channels. There is another channels on e-commerce. They are very small boutiques, also specialized. So also the routing changed. Well, what is the best industrial setup in cities, for instance? Would we have finishing small factories in the middle of center of cities to avoid high traffic of trucks bringing materials? So these are the questions also that impacting only the business food, but also logistics and urbanization of the cities. And this is a must to have and to think about. The silos optimizations. So we were used to optimize everything in a value chain in silos, be in procurement, or manufacturing, or distribution. Today, the optimization is overall, end-to-end. And in digital, it is now possible to do. Therefore, we have to do it to compete on this business. Decision making. We automatize many of the tasks in industry, not only in food, in other businesses as well. But today, all businesses are going beyond automating tasks, physical mechanization of tasks. We are going to decision automation. So decision is today and will be more and more taken by machines. Here machine, that's the robot machine, but algorithm. It is already ongoing, happening today to optimize our processes in manufacturing, in quality, in food safety, and will be only increasing. So imagine also the role of expertise, human expertise at manufacturing level becoming less and less impactful. So lots of decisions are dedicated to systems. So this is a fact as well. Plus the last one is about employment. Employment in terms of competence. So all groups try to retain their competence to compete. That was the past. Today, even this competence, young generation, don't want to stay longer and longer in companies. They want to have experiences all around. So these competences as well in industry and in business, food and others, will be acquired as a service. So people may work for different also customers at the same time, and there is nothing wrong with that. So this is again a reality of society that with remote connectivity and databases could be also a part of the business in food. Now, of course, as I said, we are not doing digital for digital itself. It's not a fancy thing. This is something that supports the business, being in profitability or growth. So there are three parts, more cost, I will say, for the existing. Most of the companies, they have already existing plants and existing manufacturing setup. So the more work on in costs, in quality, in flexibility, I was talking about customization. You need to be very flexible to supply Amazon and Tesco at the same time, and the boutique on the corner. So manufacturing industry has to be extremely agile and flexible to support all these customers while being also profitable. Last part about new business models. There are many ongoing today, small, but complete new way also to do business with the food. I was last week in Singapore, and you could see how governments, and okay, you can consider Singapore as one big city, I would say, as a comparison of European cities, how the government is supporting the creation of a new business model in the food industry. Supporting it with startups, with business people. Just put in weekends. We have weekends here for games. That's many organized as municipalities, which is fine. It's a lot of fun. But these guys also having weekends for business people. They come and they spend time to imagine the new business models to create. And many of the companies, they were even competing and sitting together. So this model we need to think about to trigger the creativity and innovation. So these are the part of why we do the digital. Now, let's make it to lend it a bit to earth, and what is it as technologies. So in cost today, I was mentioning decision making at factory level. So we do have today systems that automatically find the right parameter, let's say, recipe to produce the product with any quality of raw materials. I want to make a coffee at the end, I'm talking in food and beverage. Whatever is the green coffee coming to my sites, good, bad, humid, the system is intelligent enough to process it and to keep always the exact same quality of the product. So this is something that wasn't happening just 5 years ago. I was personally struggling to make this happening. So today it is happening, and you see here brands. I'm not having any share for all these brands here, but just examples of industry, and you can find more and more. These are the ones that I personally work with and made some project. Productivity as well. Productivity, it is stagnating since now almost 15 years in the West industry. Whatever improvement we have done, it's still stagnating. So today there is an opportunity to make it also increasing and improving. Last part is about innovation. So there are companies today developing the full life cycle to manage a product from marketing up to launching it through industrial scale, through tests, through consumer also studies at the end. So these are the tools that makes also this cycle time of innovation shorter and shorter. And this is also required on this business industry. Everybody wanted something new and all the time. And this is key also for this food business. So these are examples. And as I said, I wanted just to demystify a little bit this digitalization. It's not just converting books, paper books to e-books. It's a bit more than that. Part of it is connectivity, and this is applicable not only to food, to even your digital urbanization and all the industry, I would say, and business branches. So this is a part about connectivity, connecting everything and getting data. This is key. Chinese government is investing 300 billions for the next year, only to build databases and to process it later. How many are we spending in Europe? I'm not sure the 3 will be even enough. So you see the challenge is big to connect and to get data, because this will be the fuel of the future. The intelligence and analytics, so AI, artificial intelligence, this is something that's a fact, whether we like it, whether we can debate on it for hours. However, this is the trend of the future. There is no more other options, because it is better to optimize any AI things. Today, if I ask any one of you to make complicated calculation, you will take your smartphone and you will do the calculation. And it is nature, normal, everybody's using it. So tomorrow, it's not only a little calculation, but it's more complex decision making. We will all rely to some algorithms to help us to do that. So this is a trend, and we need to have competence and expertise there. Last part is the collaboration or the mix between what is virtual and what is physical. So the augmented reality is one of them. How to transfer information in both sides. So this blend between the two, and the application there are huge. Smart robotics, not robotics as industrial that we have seen in the 90s as an automation. However, it's more a smart robotics that makes tasks more complicated tasks. So this is more or less the groups of today's digitalization. So I'll let you think about it and see what are you applying on this, on your digital challenge cities, and what applications are you using tools there to achieve your specific objectives. So next part is about the how. Knowing why I will do things and what is it is one, but being efficient in applying it, you need to have your framework of models, how to operate this. It's not something that you buy, you put in place and it works. It needs a change management. It needs a way to pilot it, because we need to build competence. It's not something that was built 20 or 30 years ago and it is very established. It is new, this is one, and it is evolving. It will not gonna stop evolving. So it will be accelerating each cycle of 3 to 5 years. We will have something new will come up and technology. So we need to understand it quickly and applying it. The reason why, this is one proposal. So this could be applicable to also your urbanization projects. So you need to pilot, so to jump to the water. Whatever is the temperature of this water, you need to jump in. You can't think and plan. This is not anymore the main, I would say, the model. This is very traditional model. So you'll keep, the more you think, the more you're getting late. So you need to jump to the water and test something. Some will work, some will not, but at least you will fail fast and learn fast. If something works for you, then you need to scale it. So you need to roll it out to share it with other cities, okay, to be applicable elsewhere. So this is the key for you need to pilot, to test, and take this risk, let's say, to testing, to learn. The worst you can have that you learn something, which is key on this environment. Another part, the bottom part in orange, is more to sustain this, to deliver not only today in your objective, but also in the future for tomorrow. So their competence is key. We do need to have competence. So I'm coming from a little country in the middle of Europe, but unfortunately it's still not in EU, and Switzerland. And even though it's a small country, there is what we call a Digital Switzerland Day. There is one day, it's almost celebrated, and there are thousands of events per this day, only for digitalization. So it's now 3 years already happening. So just to trigger you, I'm not giving this as an example or good example, but this is something, the habits that we need to think. A food day, whatever day, we need to have also a digital day because it's a part also of our life. So we need to have common understanding of all this and to build competence, ecosystems for partners, for technologies. Most of the tech companies today are either in North America or in China. I will challenge anyone to give me big names in tech company digital from Europe. And this is a real issue. This is a real issue. So we need to really engage the ecosystem to sponsor it, okay, to have this more and more tech companies. So last part, as a recommendation, I'm humble enough, I don't want to give you a recommendation, but at least if there is a 3 to pick, you need to be the catalyzer of the transformation. Not the one that does, but you need to trigger it, to create this energy in all your cities to push further the transformation. It is a transformation. It will not happen once and not a short-termist also project. This is a long-term vision. So first is to sponsor the innovation. You need to sponsor it. How to create beyond universities. Universities manage knowledge. You do manage leadership and technology. It's 2 different things. If you go to the US, most of the CEOs of tech companies, they have not even finished the university study. Okay? And they are the top 5 today in the business. Beyond 1 trillion now. So just to make you thinking, innovation is not anymore just universities. We need to change this traditional model. Also in Southeast Asia is exactly the same. It's more connecting business with more motivated and technical savvy, young or it doesn't matter the age, but the people. So this connectivity, you need to make it. You are the responsible on sponsoring this. The opening of social healthy debate, it is important, not only for technical people, but for everybody. It will be our reality and more in 10 to, I would say, 2030. You will not imagine the amount of decision that we will not take. We will delegate it to other systems because they are better than us. Therefore, we need to create today also already this awareness, opening this debate that everybody understand what is this digital. It's not that something for the techie and the geek, but it's also a reality of everybody. So this is something that you need to create this debate that people talk and speak about the topics. Last part is about starting to review the education systems and programs. We have been all in schools and universities. The way I learned, I'm not sure personally, it is the best way to be effective in 10 or 15 years. So generation today, that learning how to do the basic math calculation, this will not going to work in 10 years. This will not going to work. So we need to imagine there is nobody that's having an answer, but starting to think about it, how people will learn. I can learn from home, many things. All my knowledge that I knew today, since 20 years I was working on this area and it changed. The only thing that I had, and I keep in mind, that I keep learning. I'm learning more in online. There are many and not that expensive, okay? And there is a tremendous knowledge there. So we need to take it. So how also to learn our children, that they start learning by themselves. It's not a teacher that's giving some knowledge, they pick it, and then once they go out to the universal reality of business, there's nothing to apply. Any basic system will do better than them. Then there is a shock in society. So these are the three elements. So humble enough to recommend to you as a leader of cities to have this vision on the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was not only an overview about the agri-food industry, but about the digitalization in general, with very clear message to the cities to be bold, courageous, and take the lead. So we continue with our second speaker, Borris Foerster from Accelerate. It's a digital advisory brand that helps companies recreate their business model, okay, to make it more effective. He's going to tell us why and how cities should create digital agri-food clusters. And I give you the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So as it was said, excuse my voice, I'm a bit ill, but I hope you can hear me all. So I'm a director with Accelerate and mostly responsible together with a colleague for digital innovation in business and the public sector, and also founder of the think tank FOODnext, which is covering basically the development and the future of the entire value chain within the food and agri sector, because we cannot see food and agriculture as two separate supply chains, actually one chain. So I have a question for you to start off with, actually. I have to scroll. What do you think you see on this picture? Anyone here from France? Any idea?
It's a farmer.
Yeah. So actually, it's one of my favorite pictures because it's a picture by Jean-Marc Coté from 1899, and that's how he imagined how a farm would look in the year 2000. So, as you can see, we have an experience anchor in the past from what we've learned, and more often than not, when we look into the future, we're completely wrong. And we just have to acknowledge the fact that we are completely wrong most of the time. So when we're embarking on new paths like the agri-food is in now, which is structurally changing in a lot of ways, so we just need to ensure that we have a common vision and focus on that vision instead of prefixed goals that we want to reach on the way, so we need to leave the flexibility on that way. So as you all know, the reality in agriculture looks quite different. So meet Bonnie Robb. Bonnie Robb is a development and a joint project from Bosch, Amazonwerke Dreier in Germany, and the University of Osnabrück. And Bonnie Robb is a weeding robot, is partially autonomous. They're working on full autonomy. Basically the idea is that you launch it from your farm. Ideally, your field will tell you when you need to launch it, and it will drive to the field by itself. and will weed on the farm with 0 pesticides. So if you have big chemical companies within your municipalities, you can imagine what that's doing to the chemical companies. So Bayer is actually preparing for pesticide use, a 95% reduction in pesticide usage. That's extreme to the company. They need to be looking for new business models. If those companies are within your region, there will be massive shifts in the type of workers that you need, and probably massive changes within supplier industries within the regions. So you need to be aware of what is happening. So what's important to understand, I think, and this has been said by Taoufik as well, this would have never happened without collaboration. So, and also the way they think about the future here is when I'm saying it will go from the farm to the field by itself. There needs to be some government regulation to ensure it can actually or it is allowed to cross the road, which is a problem today. And actually, agriculture is quite a bit further than the automotive industry because they can actually drive on private land, which is a bit hard to drive on agricultural land with your Mercedes partly autonomous drive. So the reality today, what does this all mean? So just to put this into perspective, as many of you will know, we're estimating around 68% of the global population will be moving to cities by 2050, and living in cities. But the extreme is that those 68% are actually going to consume 80%. Seed development, genetics, which is a difficult topic in the EU, and probably one of the reasons why my major funds are actually being funneled around major trends in agriculture. So tremendous power in terms of food demand on the industry and on what's happening, and also you have a tremendous responsibility for what is actually happening within your cities and how people will consume food within your cities in the future. And obviously that is working upstream in the supply chain, because if you're influencing how people will eat, that will influence the supply chain upstream, which means down to the seed development. So there's great power where you are, and you need to be using that power. I believe very strongly in that. So if you do not believe that agri-food clustering is a winner yet, so I'll give you some more numbers. By 2050, global population will rise. You all know that, you've all heard the numbers, but what does it actually mean? Well, it means we need an estimated 100%, so times 2 the global food production, and 70% will have to come from efficiency gains, because actual agricultural land per capita is going down. So actually, physically, we're actually losing agriculturally cultivated land, and at the same time, obviously, we're facing population growth. And as you all know, as we become more affluent, we eat more meat. More meat means we need to plant more food for the meat to eat, right? So we are competing in agricultural land actually between food for us, animal feed, and on top biofuels. Actually, my aunt, she has an asparagus farm. And they used to pay around 800 euros per hectare to plant the asparagus. It was very profitable. Now they're competing with soy, maize for biofuels. and they're paying 1,800 per hectare, and this happened in the past 5 years. So that's an extreme shift. So what's actually happening in the sector? Let's look at it from the investor side and let the money do the talking. So the agri-food sector has been, from investment perspective, on quite a rise. We're at around 10 billion, just over 10 billion in investment globally right now. Obviously, if you're looking at the entire industry, that's tiny, but it's growing very fast. We've grown around 30%, so 29% year on year from last year. After a small dip in 2016, well, although there was a small dip, actually the entire VC industry has dipped much more in that time. So currently, and this is what worries me, because we're actually quite far in agriculture, and we were quite advanced when it comes to machinery, because we're very good engineers in Europe. So currently the largest part of the investment is flowing around Europe. So this is partly due to the fact that two of the largest trends are in genetics and artificial intelligence. Two things, to say the least, we're not very good at in the EU from an international perspective. So agriculture is the least digitized industry in the world, and this leaves great opportunity for you and us businesses within your vicinity to build on new business. So, but what's important to understand is albeit all this talk about changing business models and changing society and all this, no one is trying to replace the farmer, right? We're just giving the farmer new tools, so the operations of the farmer will look entirely different in the future, which means, again, that if you have a lot of farms around your city, which 99% of you, it will be a fact, because actually 40% of farmland is within 20 kilometers of cities globally, you will have to foster this and support this, because the infrastructure they will need will change entirely. So what do companies actually need? So actually, so we've discussed this a lot with major companies that are competing in some areas, and they're kind of cooperating in other areas, and startups, research institutions, and everyone is saying we have a completely fragmented industry. Wherever I go, nothing seems worse than agriculture. We're the least digitized. We're just being hammered by everybody. And we need fertile ground to cooperate, and we're really willing to cooperate. So at the moment, everyone is completely disconnected on a higher scale, and disruption actually happens in the research departments and the startups, but there's not much cooperation between the two. So cities, I think, they have the tools to be able to foster the collaboration within that area. And to be more precise, so why is this important, what I said, in my opinion, for cities? Because you're in the unique position to foster innovation like no investor, no corporate, no startup or private research institute can. You can lay a fertile foundation in terms of infrastructure, funding, be it direct or indirect, and act as a connector and door opener, because generally you will know all the big companies, you can connect them with startups, which are an essential part of these ecosystems. And of course, you need to know when significant companies and industries are about to be disrupted within your region, and react appropriately. And obviously, you have the opportunity, as I said, to co-steer what is happening within your region and the food supply of your citizens. So what else from the side of the corporations and startups and technologists? So everyone needs access to land, to test new things, access to facilities. We need to connect startups with farmers and corporates and research institutions within your area. And you probably know all of these, but you just need to bring them together. It sounds easier, it's easier said than done, but we need to start to foster these things. So what does this mean? if we do not swiftly and boldly react, we will run into problems that we will actually leave for future generations. Because these are long-run problems, and we're just making it worse by waiting. To cite a friend who is the chief editor of AgtFunder, one of or the major news sites and investment site on agricultural technology. From a technology and investment perspective, internationally, Europe is already seen as the museum of agriculture, because everyone seems to be ahead, and we're kind of finding it difficult at the moment still to work with new technology the way it's done internationally. So we need to start building networks across the cities and boundaries. So it doesn't only work within your cities, so we need to work across cities. And agri-food cluster building, while an international challenge, is dependent on local clusters that you foster and where you can enable the support. But it cannot be done in isolation, as supply chains don't know borders right now. So if you're investigating this idea and you're building clusters, or you are in touch with the food and agricultural industry, or changing your business model within your city, so please do get in touch. I love to talk about it. As you can see, I've overrun on time. And I'm very much looking forward to the talks after this later. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt the next speaker. I think he is ready, but I have an important announcement to make. Those people who are supposed to take the mini van to the airport, the bus is waiting for you at the airport, and I will read the names. So if people are there, if you have forgotten that you have to take the minibus, please do so, because then it's going to be complicated that you're going to get. So I have on my list Cristina Politi, Angelina Todorova-Boneva, Audrey Van Veen, Lorraine Tronde-Bouchony. Boris, we will arrange for you a later connection, so you can stay with us. And the last is Alexander Tsonev. So those people that are in the room, there is a minibus that is waiting at the hotel. Otherwise, you're going to miss your connection.
Our next speaker is online.
Oh, okay. We'll pass to Fico. Okay.
She's ready. Okay.
Okay. One sec. So Boris, thank you very much. Thank you. Very interesting the speech about the power of cities to create ecosystems, but also the responsibility in terms of what the citizens are consuming. Very interesting this part. We have now a video connection with Fico Italy. I see Annalisa and Tiziana, or only Annalisa? Wow, very good.
Hi, yeah,
Hello.
fine.
Very good. So we have Annalisa in the connection. Fico Italy is a very big food park.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please share your screen so we can see your presentation.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
So she's going to talk about us how they use digital in order to promote the local production and the reputation of Italian food.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yes, you can maybe open the presentation completely so we see the... Yeah, perfect. That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Annalisa, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Annalisa Rosati. I work for FICO Italy World. FICO is the largest food park in the world. We opened in November 2017 with the aim to reunite and showcase the excellence of Italian food production and culture. FICO is the place where Italian excellence, food and non-food, can be discovered by people from all over the world. And to do that, we like to say that we are a real place with 10 hectares of a park divided with 2 hectares of fields and stables with real animals like cows producing real milk that is eaten and produced then inside the park. In the 8 hectares made of 40 producing factories, 45 restaurants, and the wide offer, educational offer we studied for our visitors. And that's how we try to represent Italy with their territory and the biodiversity, and the very large biodiversity of our country, and trying to speak to the world, to visitors coming from almost every country. In the first year from the opening, we are proud to have welcomed almost 3 million visitors, the 70% of which come from outside Bologna, and 20% of this 70% comes from abroad. The location of FICO in Bologna is very important because Bologna has a perfect connection with the north and the south of the country, and has an airport with 6 million passengers per year and one of the main train stations of Italy. In the first year, we are proud to have welcomed more than 40,000 students from all ages, who came here with schools for educational activities. And we estimate that 300,000 people spent at least 1 hour of their time discovering something about the culture of food. FICO is a free entry park, so that everybody can enjoy the products and the companies and the animals and the space we have. We design a very wide program for education, since we want to spread the Italian culture about food and food production to visitors and students from all over the world. And this is, we do this with 3 different kind of guided tours, more than 50 different courses divided in 3 categories, so that visitors can learn by doing themselves and or tasting. We organize about 30 events per day, and we have 6 multimedia carousels inspired by the Expo model. I don't know if any one of you have been to Expo Milan in 2015. On that occasion, we launched the project of FICO Italy World, and during our visit there, we've been inspired by some of the installations that many countries designed to spread their own culture. So we thought this could be great to have in FICO some multimedia pavilions to tell the story about the relationship between humankind and nature, as with the fire, the seas, animals, earth, the bottle, and the future. We try with these carousels, with these 6 carousels, to tell the story with a very strong impact on new generations especially, and to entertain visitors while they're learning something. And we do these with 4 main tools. First of all, the first thing you see when you get into a FICO carousel is a very scenographic installation which has the purpose to give visitors immediately a sort of wow effect and put them immediately in the context of that particular carousel, like this. Then we carry the visitors in an interactive exploration in their visit of the carousel with multimedia items like tables or totems, so that they can interact with these tools and learn something about the history and the technologies and the discoveries linked to the theme. And then we have a playful part made with a small cinema where we play short films made by the students of the Italian Cinema Academy in Milan. So we invited students to be inspired by fire or water or earth, etc., and give us their interpretation of that theme. And further, we have multimedia totems or tables where we propose in Italian and English interactive quiz. Thanks to these quiz, visitor can learn some curiosity, some unusual facts about the theme the carousel is about. And now every pavilion is built and designed with 4 different focus. An emotional part, thanks to the installation, which is the center of the spectacular involving of our visitor. A main narration of the theme, for example, Man and the Bottle, how the oil and beer and the wine through history all over the world has evolved. A focus on Italy, of course, with a focus on Italian discoveries and nowadays technologies, and some curiosities or unusual facts that you normally don't know about the theme. The pavilions are 6. The first one is Man and Fire, because of course the fire control changed the course of human evolution from the perception of it as a danger up to the control of it as a technique to stay warm in the winter, or value the nutritional elements of food, or defend from predators. Man and Earth, so the story of the world agriculture, 40,000-year-old story, and of course a focus on the very wide Italian biodiversity. Man from soil to the bottle, so how wine, beer and olive oil in thousands of years has evolved. Man and the sea, since Italy is surrounded on 3 sides by water, so it's a very important element for the Italian culture. Man and the animals tells the story of a very long-lasting friendship, similar to the fire, from the time where animals were in danger up to the history of how they became friends for food, for transportation, for clothing, and for protection. And at the end, man and the future. This is the closing step of the journey through FICO carousels, with the reflection of an innovative technology, with the hydroponic agriculture, to think of the fact that the future needs for humankind to respect the earth. And this is a very particular carousel to me, except for the design, which is very beautiful as the other pavilions, because visitors in here can can plant an actual seed without the use of soil, just water, and then by downloading an app for smartphones, they can follow the growth of their plant even when they're home, even the weeks later after their visit. So we can say that for FICO, the educational program is one of our main purpose and main mission of the park, and we really hope you will visit FICO after this presentation.
Thank you very much, Enric. You can stay with us until all speakers finish for questions.
I'm afraid I have to go for a meeting, but thank you again for inviting us.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very good. So we continue with Enric Pedros. He's a manager at FEMAC, a cluster of agricultural production in Catalonia, one of the more established and old clusters in the EU. He's going to tell us about how digitalization can support the agricultural landscape, and more specifically the SMEs.
Can I move?
You can move from the mouse.
I can move. Okay, good morning to everybody. So first of all, thank you very much, Roland Berger and Technopolis, for inviting me. So it's part of my job. My name is Enric Pedros, and I am the cluster manager of FEMAC. It's a cluster located in the city of Lleida, in the northeast of Catalonia, which is an important agro-food hub. And the reason why it was developed an important sector related to agricultural machinery, fertilizers, and so on. So it's part of my job to understand what is going on out of our sector, what others are doing with digitalization, as we are strongly involved in a digitalization process. So I am very happy to see I'm quite in line with others of my speakers. So in particular, the word cluster has been mentioned a couple of 3 times. Borris even mentioned it, that cluster can be a tool for cities to foster the collaboration. He said also that the ecosystem is fragmented, and I have to say that it's very tough job for cluster organization to put all these stakeholders. So another speaker, I think yesterday, mentioned that its city has to engage the stakeholders in this process of digitalization. This is what we do, okay? And this is from our experience, which I have been doing for 20 years. I have to say that it's very, very, very tough job, okay? So Taoufik, I don't know if Taoufik, he mentioned, he represents the agro-food sector, okay? So agricultural production means is the first link of the completely value chain. So I think we are quite online. So you explain a little bit why and what and how. So I will try to explain a little bit how we deployed our what we call FEMAC 4.0 strategy, which is related to the digitalization, okay? So just to understand what is the agricultural production means, okay? So agricultural production means are those means that you need to produce agricultural product, okay? So even before the farmer start his production process, he needs the land, okay? This is the first production means. Then you need the seed, okay, to plant the future fruit. You need the water, okay? You need the fertilizer, which is the food of the plant. You need the pesticide, which is the medicament of the plant. You need the agricultural machinery to make all those processes possible, okay? And then you need the first part, which is the transformation. So in FEMAC, we only represent this. So we discard the water and the land as why? Because they do not add value in the value chains, okay? And recently we have incorporated the AgTech. This is the new player, okay? So we're talking about three, no more than 4 years that came out the new startups related to new technologies, which I will show you later on, that we have to be implemented in our processes, okay? So we cannot understand anymore anything what we do without these new ag technologies, okay? So some facts about the cluster. So we are a small organization. It's a non-profit organization. We are only 3 people in front of. So approximately 50 members. Some of them are universities, the 2 main universities in Catalonia. So on the right column, you can see, so there is a spectrum of only about 133 companies in Catalonia related to fertilizers, phytosanitary, seed, tech, and agricultural machinery. As you can see, agricultural machinery is the major number of companies, but it's less value in terms of turnover, okay? So the biggest one are the pesticide, Bayer crop science, Borris mentioned it. So I will come back with this new about this 95% reductions of turnover. So I appreciate this kind of information because this is about what we do now. So and also you can see, so the major number is agricultural machinery, but the turnover is very small. So we're talking about a very small and medium blacksmith traditional companies. This is you have to put in context how difficult this is to make this shift, okay? So how it going back? So can you maybe? Okay, so our strategy, very roughly, what is our strategy? So we innovate, we try to innovate to create value. We cooperate, in fact, in the way that we strengthen synergy among us, and we internationalize. Okay, we foster the competitiveness of our companies and members. So this is more or less the 3 main axes of our strategy as a cluster. Okay. But the question, talking to Pierre, was what actions a city can to support the digital transformation of the agro industry. Okay, So I'm gonna share with you what we do, and maybe you can learn something or can take some tips, okay? At the end, so we are organization, but we have the same, okay? The first thing, and also it was mentioned during some of the speakers yesterday, was the challenge, no? So the first thing we ask to ourselves is, what is our challenge as organization? What is your challenge as a company? What you do for what, okay? So then, Borris also mentioned it, so it was a very nice introduction. So by 2015, so we have to produce 70% more of our food to feed the planet. That means 3 billion more people. And that at the same time means we have a problem with the land. We have water scarcity and an important climate impact. So then we see, okay, so how we can do that? So then we go to the planet, and we see that to obtain this protein to feed the world, we have almost 71% is water. And by now, we cannot take proteins from the water. I know that there are some studies about to take proteins from algae, but by now we have to take the protein from this 12% of arable land. And as Boris said, maybe not in other parts of in the world, but in Europe, this arable line is reducing the quality. Okay, so we cannot take into much in consideration this 12%, even is less than that. Then we have 10% under conversion, but this land is not in Europe, it's in far west of Europe, in China, it's in Russia, and some parts of South America. So then we have the 7% of the intact of land that we cannot touch, okay, to do not break the balance or what, why, so we have to keep it. But it's something that we have to discuss, as both Sano was selected in Brazil, so we will see if he can keep this 7% intact. And then we have approximately 0.05% of inhabitants. So this is the challenge. So with approximately the same land resource, we have to be able to produce more, okay? And how we do that is, we understood that digital can be equipped to develop new solutions to overcome this challenge, okay? So our vision is to innovate and incorporate advanced technology to make a more sustainable of our companies, no, as an organization, okay? Can I, okay. So yeah, just go ahead. Just to put in a very historical context, okay? So everybody's talking about the industry 4.0, but we like to talk about the agriculture 4.0, okay? So, but if you take a look on this slide, so from the first one, so it's 10,000 years ago, no? Okay, and we needed 8,000 years to go to the second revolution. And we are still in the third revolution, that we are facing the fourth revolution. So that gives us an idea how complex is in the sector, in the world we are living. No? So we are talking about recently 4 or 5 years that we are introducing the physical new technologies in the farming. Okay, so. The conceptual framework is also a word that has appeared during some of the speakers these days. No, so we designed a conceptual framework. Okay, on the left we have the process and products. Okay, and in the other side we have what are the technologies we need. Okay, to deploy all this strategy. In the middle, on the right, we have the participants. But we need the infrastructures. I think this is I think it's the weakest point in our conceptual framework. So we do not have yet the infrastructure to deploy the completely digital strategy. And I think cities play a good role on that, okay? In fact, FEMAC is located in agro-food park also, which is owned by 50% of the city of Lleida, 50% of the university. And one of the projects is in progress is to develop a big data center for the agro-food sector, okay? I will try to go fast, okay? So, and how how we are deploying our strategy. Okay, you look at the first one is promoting the implementation of the agriculture. So the second one is ensuring the knowledge and development of this strategy, enhance the cooperation intercluster and intercluster both, and fostering the use of enabling technology. I will go a little bit quickly in each one of them. So when but let me wait. So I cannot see too much. Okay, so the idea is support the strategy. So thank you very much. Definition of a strategic projects. Farik said doing by doing, learning by doing. So what you need, what we can do, what is our farmers' demands. So let's put together. So by project, defining the projects that we need to develop, and ensuring the condition, the public funds, which is part of our jobs also, to implement this strategy. Okay, so I think the next one is much more easy. Ensuring, I think this is the most difficult. I think if you can achieve this step in your strategy, you have achieved 50%. Because the most difficult for us was to ensure that what we wanted to do, together was real understood by our cluster members, and we created the right roadmap, the right path to develop and to deploy this strategy. So believe me, it took at least a couple of years to convince the companies, to convince the university, the technological centers, all the stakeholders to sit together, to cooperate, to collaborate, that we needed to do something at that point. That it was not enough to sell and to go around. So we needed to change the way we facilitate our products to our farmers. Okay, so the sense is the cluster. So we needed to create the team, and then we needed to spread to the rest of the community, and finally to the population. Okay, so we do it internally and externally. So we are open, so we cooperate with other clusters, with other organizations, with other private companies. So we are in different European projects, regional, national. So this is a part of our strategy. Okay. Yeah, you can go on. Okay, and this is fostering. So we identified what are the technologies that can be applied in the agricultural production means. I'm not going to extend too much in these reflections, but if you can see in the next one. So the idea, one more. The idea was to see what of each one of these technology can be applied on all of these agricultural production means, and for what. Okay, that was the idea. So we developed it one by one, which of machine learning, photonics can be applied on each one of these technologies. Okay, but I'm not going to extend too much. Some cluster projects. Also yesterday it was mentioned the smart specialization strategy. Okay, so in Catalonia, so we have already deployed this smart specialization strategy, and we are part. Okay, we are part of a community. It's called the COTPA, the community of agricultural production transformation, and we are involved in two projects. Okay, one is the Internet of Things. Okay, the idea is to create the cloud infrastructure to get the data from the machinery. Okay, because this is another discussion. What kind of data we need? We need the data of our machineries. We need the historical data of the farming processes from the farmers. What kind of data we need to collect, and how, and for what? Okay, this is more or less about the project we do with ECO crops. And on the right, it's LISA. It's about more than circular economy and sustainable agriculture. LISA means low input sustainable agriculture. Okay, so what kind of technologies can we can take advantage to be more efficient in the use of the inputs, and by inputs in particular in this we mean fertilizers and water. Okay, so how we can be, what really needs the plant, and according to these needs how we can make available application of the inputs. Okay, this is about Lisa. I'm not going to send. I have another one. This is a project. It was developed a couple of years ago. The idea was to compare 3 different technologies: spectrometry image from an airplane, with 2 startups related to a smart sensor. One is to the leaves, which it measures the pH, wind, climatic parameters, and another one was to measure the inland parameters, NPK, etc. The idea was to confront all this data to develop a fungic model prediction. Okay, fungic is a disease that affects to the vineyards, which is Spain. It's a very important vineyards producer. The idea was to contrast all this information. So, as you can see, we are even in that step. Okay, so we are in the step of the different technologies are coming out, but there is no this integration. This doesn't exist. Okay, so and finally, what action? So this is from my humble point of view. I can share with you that maybe you can take into consideration. If you can go ahead. So this is something we have done. Go ahead. Okay, so. Digitalization mapping. No? So what are the real needs of your industrial network around your I think it's very important to have a realistic map picture of the real needs of the companies. Okay. Then support infrastructure of technologies. As I said, without that there is no possibility to implement. Okay. Digitalization workshops. Okay, next week, I think in 2 weeks we're gonna organize a workshop with the Mobile World Congress. As you know, it's a worldwide congress about digital technologies. So they want to know also what we need, and we need to know what technologies can be used. So this is a perfect matchmaking. So we're gonna organize together with GCM. So this kind of to create this space of discussion, of reflection. I think it's important in your ecosystems. Then we have training and projects. So companies are lost. Okay, companies are overwhelmed, so some of them, when you talk about digitalization, they're even a little bit afraid, because it's hard for them to understand well how and the process. So I think we need some expertise. We need some outside, even from other sectors, to see how they done before. So I think this is a part of the process, no? And digital coaching, the same. Okay, so have some internal expert to guide all the process for the companies. And finally, networking, which is something you are doing, I am doing, and I strongly believe I learn a lot from what I have seen during the session yesterday, and especially with my colleagues of the panels. So thank you very much, and I am at your disposal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Enric, not only for the knowledge you shared about the food industry, but about the importance of strategy, of cooperating, of bringing everyone together. And we pass to our last speaker, Álvaro Soler Esteban, from the company Multiscan, that is an expert in olives, as I understood, and it's coming from the city of Alcoy. 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. Hola, buenos días. Mi inglés no es tan bueno, voy a hacer la presentación híbrida, es decir, la parte escrita estará en inglés y al igual que trabajamos ahora mucho en mi compañía, hibridando redes neuronales para hacer análisis de imagen con algoritmia, voy a hacer mi exposición en castellano soportado por la parte en inglés del PowerPoint. Vamos a hablar de cómo crear una conexión con el territorio, con la ciudad que nos da soporte, que es Alcoy, a través de todo lo que supone esa ciudad en cuanto a soporte de universidad y de apoyo del ayuntamiento para la creación de conocimiento que ha permitido a mi compañía permanecer en el territorio. Nosotros, Multiscan está situada en Alcoy, que es una ciudad de 60.000 habitantes, una ciudad media, con una importante tradición industrial y que tiene una importante ventaja competitiva. Tiene una sede de la Universidad Politécnica de Valencia situada en Alcoy, con un campus de alrededor de unos 2.800 alumnos. Eso ha permitido que mi compañía pueda ir obteniendo conocimiento para mantenerse en ese territorio y desarrollar tecnologías para análisis de alimentos en dos áreas fundamentales. Lo que es visión artificial aplicada a la agroindustria para detectar contaminantes, para detectar colores, formas, tamaños en productos pequeños y redondos como aceitunas, y luego también la parte de seguridad alimentaria mediante tecnologías de rayos X. La compañía arranca en 1996, pero ya habíamos trabajado previamente en 1992 utilizando tecnología de visión en la compañía Ford para analizar la superficie de la pintura de los vehículos. Un ejemplo de algunas de las máquinas, para que tengáis un poco, tengan un poco la referencia del tipo de máquinas que fabricamos. Estas son las máquinas de visión artificial convencionales, es decir, aquellas que llevan visible, infrarrojo, láser, etcétera, y las que llevan tecnología de rayos X. Cuando hablo de tecnología de rayos X, hablo también de tecnologías de CT, es decir, hemos desarrollado también máquinas de tomografía axial computerizada como las máquinas médicas, con la misma resolución que ellas, pero aplicadas al sector de la alimentación para el análisis de por ejemplo, piernas de cerdos, o podríamos también aplicarla al análisis de grandes piezas de atún para obtener su estado interno. Multiscan en este momento tiene en la sede central unas 80 personas y unas 90 alrededor de todas las sedes que tiene. Tenemos un headquarter en Alcoy, que es la principal, luego tenemos sedes en la Politécnica de Valencia, en Madrid, en Sevilla, y luego también tenemos filiales en Chile, Argentina, Colombia y los Estados Unidos. Tenemos más de 1.100 máquinas instaladas y estamos en 30 países. Bueno, pero vamos a ver lo que hemos venido aquí a hablar, ¿no? Nosotros arrancamos dentro de Alcoy hace ahora unos 22 años y arrancamos en el comedor de mi casa. Si hubiésemos estado en los Estados Unidos, pues lo habríamos hecho con más glamour y dentro de un garaje, ¿no? Que es lo que todo el mundo esperaba de nosotros. Hemos podido llegar a donde estamos porque con mucho entusiasmo hemos ido convenciendo a los sucesivos ayuntamientos y sobre todo al que tenemos ahora en que hay que invertir en la formación, lo que antes hemos mencionado, de que hay que cambiar el paradigma con el que se está educando. Hemos conseguido que todo eso se plasme en dos niveles. El primer nivel es el equipo de robótica infantil que tiene el ayuntamiento y del que somos el sponsor principal, y que lo que hace es que a los niños entre 10 a 14, 15 años les enseña y les estimula en el uso de las tecnologías de robótica que nos van a servir, por ejemplo, luego a nosotros en algunas de nuestras máquinas. Y luego también el segundo nivel es el equipo de robótica de la Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, del que también somos su sponsor. Luego también hemos creado una importante simbiosis con la universidad para darle y recibir, gracias a que apoyamos eventos como la Semana de la Ciencia, el Campus del Empleo. ¿Pero por qué todo esto? Es muy fácil. Estamos en una ciudad pequeña, rodeada de montañas. La gente le da ahora por querer ir a ciudades más grandes, estar fuera de ciudades pequeñas, y estamos despoblando o haciendo que las ciudades medias no crezcan. Nosotros, gracias a todo ese apoyo, estamos consiguiendo que muchos alumnos crean en el territorio y luego busquen un lugar donde trabajar dentro de la propia ciudad. Y estamos creciendo como empresa, empleando en este momento unos 60 ingenieros dentro de nuestra compañía. También soportamos a equipos en los que se desarrolla alta tecnología, como el Hyperloop Team. Somos un referente en el territorio en el que estamos como uno de los mejores lugares para trabajar, y lo hemos conseguido precisamente gracias a todo el apoyo del Ayuntamiento y de la Universidad Politécnica. Digamos que el último paso que hemos dado fue el año pasado arrancar en septiembre un máster de robótica y visión artificial dentro del aula de empresa que tenemos en la universidad para cambiar ese paradigma con el que se está creando los nuevos ingenieros que se gradúan en nuestra universidad. Gracias a ello estamos consiguiendo gente que empieza a tener unos skills muy importantes en visión artificial y que antes costaban 3 a 4 años de conseguir dentro de la compañía, acelerando el proceso mediante el cual esa gente sale formada con unas nuevas capacidades para afrontar la inteligencia artificial, el manejo de redes neuronales y los análisis de imagen, como se está configurando ahora el campo de trabajo que ocupa Multiscan. Bien, pero una pequeña compañía dentro de una ciudad que tiene 60.000 habitantes ha tenido que obtener también ese conocimiento mediante retos importantes que haya tenido que afrontar. Lo hicimos la primera vez mediante una participación en un gran programa estatal de detección de explosivos. El proyecto era el CENIT. ¿Qué hace una compañía de alimentación metida en detección de explosivos? Bueno, pues ahí es donde se emplean las tecnologías más punteras. Nos metimos en la parte de rayos X y ahí fue donde desarrollamos Dual Energy y desarrollamos toda la parte de tomografía axial computerizada. El proyecto en total eran 26 millones y nosotros, que facturábamos 2 millones, invertimos 2 millones. El resultado: se transfirió tecnología al sector de agroalimentación a partir del sector de defensa, aplicando imágenes de rayos X, de Dual Energy, de tomografía, que han permitido crear máquinas muy potentes y posicionar a Multiscan ahora en el segmento alto del sector de seguridad alimentaria. Bien, 2018-2019. ¿Cómo lo vamos a hacer ahora? Ahora el reto es aún más fuerte, ¿no? Porque tenemos que acceder a un cambio disruptivo que está ocurriendo en este momento, que nos está llevando a trabajar con redes neuronales, donde prácticamente nuestros ordenadores no pueden, las GPUs están al límite, las TPUs aún no han salido, y lo que queremos conseguir es estar preparados para ese salto. Entonces lo que hemos hecho es, esta vez no hacerlo solos, ir con un fondo de capital riesgo que se ha constituido en la Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, Tech Transfer UPV, que es el primer fondo que se mete a trabajar dentro de una universidad, de la Politécnica de Valencia, para estimular desde dentro el crecimiento de esas tecnologías. Es un fondo con 6 millones de euros y que lo que está haciendo es crear inversiones en compañías en las que algunos de los partners de ese fondo, como somos Multiscan, lo que hacemos es además intervenir o participar en esas compañías que están creando ese tipo de conocimiento. Pero todo eso, ¿para qué? Bueno, pues para detectar luego en nuestro sector mucho mejor aquellas cosas que en este momento no tienen solución. Bueno, Nestlé mataría por tener tecnología que detectara pelos en contaminantes o como contaminante en uno de sus productos. Son muy complejos de detectar. Bueno, pues estamos participando como socios mayoritarios, como socios de referencia en una de las compañías que ha invertido el fondo, que se dedica a equipos de resonancia magnético-nuclear para ortopantomografía oral. ¿Para qué os metéis ahí? Bueno, es que la resonancia magnética va a ser importante en nuestro sector, va a ser la que va a poder quizá dar solución a ese problema que tienen grandes compañías como Nestlé. Luego también nos hemos metido en el Parque Tecnológico Tecnicafé en Colombia para desarrollar tecnologías para aplicarlas al café también dentro de este proyecto. El café es quizá uno de los grandes negocios otra vez de grandes compañías como Nestlé, ¿no? Nespresso, y que sin embargo es un sector con muy poca tecnificación en el campo, en el proceso, etcétera. Y ahí hemos metido un importante búster de tecnología. Este año estará el primer equipo de rayos X, visión artificial y visión NIR en una máquina trabajando en una plantación de café. Es un salto increíble en apenas 2 años. Y todo esto porque queremos trabajar para resolver alrededor del producto todos los problemas que tiene. Contando con la colaboración del territorio, no nos queremos ir a una ciudad grande, nos gusta mucho donde estamos. Yo creo que tenemos que estimular a nuestros alcaldes a que intenten retener las compañías que se van creando alrededor de los centros de formación profesional, las pequeñas, porque ahora es muy fácil que surjan pequeñas compañías que prendan vuelo muy rápido. Hay que estar muy atentos, promocionar todo lo que es el aprendizaje de esas compañías, estimularles con el entorno, hacer que interactúen. Ayer lo comentaba con el concejal de promoción económica, que precisamente lo que hemos de conseguir es que no nos sintamos solos, compañías como la mía, que tengamos compañeros con los que poder intercambiar esas opiniones. Yo creo que se están dando pasos muy importantes, lo veo en mi ciudad, estoy contento con ello y creo que de toda manera tengo que pedirles más, porque necesitamos correr cada día más. He intentado que sea rápido y muchas gracias a todos.
Very good. So we had also the very local vision as the last presentation. I would like to open shortly for questions. I am sure it was all very interesting for you. Very good. Alain, yes, please.
Actually, I have two questions. The first one is our first speakers. I mean, they highlighted the fact that the food consumption in cities in 2050 will increase in proportion much more important than the number of inhabitants of cities. And I was questioning myself, it's coming from people in cities consuming more food.
Or if it's related, I mean, to the fact that people in cities are wasting much more food, and I personally believe that at least maybe this is an explanation, or if it's related, I mean, to the fact that the people in the cities are going to eat more proteins coming from animals, and that would explain, let's say, poor efficiency, in fact, of the let's say the agriculture in terms of the efficiency of what we are growing. And that's the first question. And the second question is something which has not been addressed or mentioned, is that we observed, especially in cities, that there are a very important consumption of transformed food, meaning a food which is built, I mean, from the, I don't know if it's the right word, the cracking of the original production. And it seems that, I'm not sure, I mean, that this process is effectively efficient, but beyond, or good for people, but beyond, I mean, I would like to ask our first speaker if this increase of fragmented food, I would say, I don't know, transformed food is effectively requesting much more digitalization, that a more short cycle process from the original, I would say, genuine food, I mean, to the consumer. Thank you.
Yes, maybe let's take one more question and answer. Yes, sorry. Two. Dana, please control him. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I think the first question is from a personal angle, if you allow me 1 minute. So my grandfather was a shepherd, and when IBM was building his first mainframe, he had 500 animals in a place without electricity, so it was agriculture 1.0. My dad became a professor of classics, and when I was in the moment of deciding what to do, my granddad said to me, forget agriculture, it's too hard, go and study university. And I ended up writing about Internet of Things in agriculture, among things, but the story is, this is the destiny of my generation in South Italy. In my place, almost 50–60% of my generation left. We live in London, wherever we live. And we left land in these places completely untouched. I mean, they are in my memory, I go back, I have my memory moments, but there is no farming at all. So this is the case where I come from, the case of the city, which I'm the lead expert of. So one question is how city can reevaluate from an agricultural point of view these lands that is not used, that was used for farming, and it is not used anymore. If we should think about that, and how. In this story, there is also the labor issue, how we encourage, because in my place, young people go away continuous. You know, they don't stop in agriculture. Despite it's so cool as you described, they don't. So what we should do for the labor market, because the Bosch robot is cool, as you said, but I think he needs the cool guy, IoT knowledge person, farmer, if you want. And third one, so you didn't mention blockchain. What do you think about blockchain? Thank you.
Very good. Okay, I think you can start answering.
Okay, I will take the first one. I will take the first question, and I think my panel colleague and farming will be better to answer. So the question is one about, I will give you one answer that combines the two. One about the consumption itself in urban cities, and the other one is the need of traceability on transformed or processed foods. Consumption is linked to urbanization. This is a fact all around the world. We're moving to more urban cities, big cities. This is either in Americas, in Europe, or in Asia, is the same pattern. Now, urban cities means people with less time because of the nature of the daily activities. Less time to cook, to prepare foods. Therefore, they would need to buy foods. So this consumption, now more and more, they need to know what is in, because it's becoming also kind of necessity to eat well, means being well as well. And this is a change of culture. So I spoke about individualization. So this drives, and it is already happening on some countries in Western Europe and North America, that people want individual foods. Not the same food that they can buy from a retail, but the ones they would like for them, because they believe it's good as individual to eat this particular treatment for nutrition. So this means for the industry to make more and more variety of foods. Variety of foods means, again, distribution, varied points of distribution, individuals. So this will complicate the logistics in cities, because where the factories will be. We used to be around cities, mega factories. Now it has to be smaller, close to where we consume or where we buy. So again, we need to rethink the model of distribution and supply chain. This is one part. So it's not because we will eat more, but we consume specific also product individually. So I'm sure you are buying your specific product in retailers, but you will love to have, again, very customized product only for you. And this is happening as a need of consumer, as a mega trend. In terms of traceability or transparency, again, people as a culture now, everywhere in the world, want to know where these products are made, by whom, and what is, again, the whole supply chain. So to do it manually, it's almost impossible. So the reason why, again, digitalizing is today the only way to track materials from farm, we call it from farm to fork. So the whole this change is really digital is the only tool, I would say, to do it. So I hope I answered a bit to your questions. I don't know the model later, what will be, but cities need to think this as it is impacting the infrastructure of cities as well.
Boris, would you like?
The second part, you're talking about hacked food. Many people understand this differently. So let me pick one, and you tell me if it's going the right direction. Recently, we've been very involved with companies that that are producing cultured meat, for example, right? So in vitro meat. It's quite a controversial topic. It's often been played down as way too expensive. It's never going to be inefficient. Production is not going to be possible, and so on and so forth. But what we ignore is that in 2012, a 100-gram burger of cultured meat cost around $358,000, and 2 years ago that cost $11 to produce, right? So if we track maybe, you know, Moore's law, which is the cost reduction law, actually cost reduction is faster than what we've anticipated. So if within 3 years I can bring down the cost from $360,000 to $11, so what's going to happen in the next 3 years? So I think it's a myth that it's not happening. It's just a when, not an if. And also now we are seeing in Germany there's a huge company called PHW Group. So they control large parts of the meat market also in Europe. And a part of that is EW, which so if you have animals that are livestock, the likelihood is actually over 99% that they will come from their gene pool that they control. So they invest in that technology heavily, and the family is very, I'd say, conservative towards those new technologies. But they are seeing their main business model threatened in the next 10 years when you talk to them. So I think it's very reality that's coming.
And may I ask Enric and Alvaro to answer especially the last part about how keeping the talent.
The last one about the abandon of lands,
yes.
And the same it happens in Lleida, in the north, in the south of Spain. So this is a social problem. The point is, if from digitalization point of view we can overcome or we can resolve this situation, my answer I would say no. But let me tell you one more thing. Yesterday there was a slide where it said that 40% of companies will be take off of the market due to the fact that it will not be competitive. So this is something happening at the same level for farmers. So it has become also a very competitive market. And those companies, small and medium farmers that cannot compete in terms of quality, yield, they are taking off of the market. But I think this is much more related to the fact that economical fact rather than something that we can approach from the digitalization point of view. But this is an issue, that's true. This is something that's happening in south of Italy, but also in our neighborhoods, in our countrysides. Used to be 50 farmers, and right now there is only 5 farmers. But the truth is that these 5 farmers have become 10 times bigger. Mm-hmm. So that is more or less what is happening. But I'm sure I did not answer your question, but it's difficult to answer what we can do with that. Okay.
Of course. Alvaro, you would like to say something about the last part?
Bueno, referente al abandono de las tierras o el desarraigo de los pueblos.
Bueno, yo creo que la tecnología ahora permite que compañías como la nuestra puedan estar en cualquier lado y puede ser un buen uso de ese terreno que se está abandonando. Lo que tenemos que conseguir es que esas ciudades pequeñitas o esos pueblos también sean capaces de albergar ese tipo de compañías. Nosotros participamos ahora alrededor de unas 21 compañías en este momento, y excepto la nuestra, que ocupa 3.500 metros cuadrados, el resto están en 90, 60 metros cuando arrancan y luego van creciendo. 60 metros se consiguen en cualquier lado. Las comunicaciones llegan a cualquier lado. Lo que hay que hacer es conseguir que todo, digamos que esos pueblos creen unas redes que permitan albergar a ese tipo de compañías. Sería un buen uso.
This is true that the small cities on the digitalization era can compete with big cities, but I don't know why everybody wants to go to live to the huge capitals. But this is a fact also. New York, Barcelona, I don't know. This is a fact. But I think that should the new technology should give the tools to the smaller cities to attract the talent in a more well-being as alive, you know. So, but I don't know.
Okay, very powerful messages to our cities from our speakers. We're running, of course, late in the schedule, so I would like to applaud them with you.
Thank you.
And I'm giving the floor to Pierre to tell you more about the following of the day.
Well done. Well presented.
Yeah, like that.
Borris, thank you.
Yeah.
I will follow you.
So, thanks to our speakers. So now we have two different sessions. First, it's the traditional training sessions on the methodology. So, Wave 2 and fellow cities will stay here with Morgan and Jacek. And Wave 1 cities will go to the biggest room upstairs together with Carlos for the training on the implementation phase. Then just don't leave yet, because right afterwards. Right after this, at within half an hour, so at 11:30, we will start with the peer reviews. So we have reshuffled the groups to offer you the opportunity to meet a maximum of cities. So group 1 we go in Salon de Comité together with Alain and myself. Group 2 in the room downstairs with Morgan and 16, so it's a cluster room. Group 3 will stay here together with Pia and Valentina. Group 4 in the biggest room where we will have the training sessions upstairs together with Jacek, and Group 5 downstairs in Aula 2 and 3 together with Carlos. So peer review will start at half past 11, and then we will have the lunch at 1 p.m. Training session. So Wave 2 and fellow cities stay here.
Voy a mandar un email porque dentro del proyecto FOODnext lo de América Latina quiero que hablemos. Sí, tengo tu tarjeta. Te mandaré un correo. Gracias. Now it's the methodology. So it's not the most interesting thing for you.
Half an hour. Half an hour. And then 30 we are serving the
mashup. So it's interesting for you to go to the mashup because you can listen to some cities' strategies and how they get it.
Because I would be interested in the ones that the cities are that inspired.
Alcoy, Aquila, Timalish to some extent, Alicante. The Spanish cities, basically. The Spanish cities are very focused on agriculture. Yeah.
I mean, Algeciras. And Sofia also.
Yeah.
And Sofia as well. Alright. And that is
I lost this one. I didn't follow him. So when this group submit? No, I mean this 5. Yeah. We stay for the program. And then what? And then we will do peer review. Second? Yeah. Okay. And for again, okay. So we make new groups. Okay. And we will meet other groups. So who might follow? It's group 5. Group 5. So it's going to be Sarah
Ça, c'est moi, ça. Ouais.
if you remember when we met last time in Thessaloniki, I presented the step 2 activities and your methodology, and this time we're going to be looking at step 3. So before we begin, maybe we can just say a few words on how the step 2 has been coming along and what's expected of you in terms of submission of your and the updating of your deliverable for step 2, which was the strategy report. So as you know, you submitted a first version of the report before this seminar, and we expect you, once you've had your peer review sessions and you've gone back with your city, to send us an updated version of this report. So you should have a quality control if you're a WAVE city, or if you're a fellow city, you make the most of this seminar and then you go back and you discuss some things and you send us a new version of your report. I'll go back on the deadlines later so you have a clear idea of when the submission is expected. There is one important thing that you need to bear in mind, is that we expect you to break up your assessment report and your strategy reports in 2. So this was communicated by email and it was not very clear for some people, so I just want to make sure that it is absolutely clear now. So if you remember in the step 1, you did your assessment report with the SAT replies and your mission statements. So that's one document that will remain a separate document. Let's say it was your first draft, it was your your first document for the strategy. But from now on, so from the strategy report to the roadmap to the final strategy, that's a different document, that's a different template. So what I'm going to do is send all of you a link to the new templates, just so that you understand which ones you need to use. But just so you know, when you send us the new version of your strategy report in 10 days or in a week time, make sure there's only the strategy in that report. We don't want to see the assessment, we don't want to see the mission statements and the SAT analysis. Is that more or less clear, or? Yes? Okay. Yeah?
Do we receive any feedback on the report? Or
yes, you will. So the quality...
I haven't got one yet from the first one. So.
From the first one, which was just your assessment?
Yes.
Is a fellow city.
But you're a fellow city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I also have to put in my work in the report myself, and then I expect to have some feedback to back.
Yeah. So it.
Or is the report just for the other cities, not for the fellow cities? Is it do a fellow city also have to leave the report? Just for the WAVE 2 cities.
So unless I'm mistaken, there is no quality control for the fellow cities.
No,
the
we
quality
don't do that.
control is for the WAVE cities.
Okay, so that's not
so you should not be expecting a quality control if you're a fellow city. You just sort of use these peer review sessions in the seminars, and you discuss with your peers, and then you go back and you work on the report. But there's no formal quality control from a member of the management team as such.
But in that case, there's no need for me to fill in the report on 17 at all.
We are anyway.
If you want to continue in the challenge, you have to submit the deliverable. That's all we ask. We don't ask you to, follow the strict workshops, but we do ask to receive one deliverable at the end of each step. I don't know if that answers your question. So you have to submit a deliverable. You don't get a detailed feedback from us on that deliverable, just because that's the difference between one of the differences between a WAVE city and a fellow city. But it's you should still submit the deliverable. Okay.
Is the report or the presentations of the fellow cities going to be sent to the commission, or is it going to be read by?
Yeah, they get sent to the commission.
So we're going to receive feedback by the commission in the end?
That's a question.
That's later. Yes, I think, all the reports, by the way, will be used also to consolidate and to create, the management team will do that, to create a kind of final report which brings together all the experiences and so on. So now I don't know exactly if the Commission will comment on each and single report word by word, or just on the general let's say, what has been delivered, what has been created with this project.
So maybe you will get feedback from the Commission on the final strategy report, but maybe not for each step, if you see what I mean.
But there will be no quality control by the technopolice or anybody
No.
else. So we just write as velocity our report and it will find it in, or it will be handed in by technopolice to the
Yes.
in the end.
Yes.
And choose properly.
Yeah, but bear in mind, we still send the fellow city reports to the Commission at the end of every step, but it's just that the Commission doesn't give feedback on every step. It will probably give a general feedback at the end with a very final report that you hand in April. Okay? So this was just to kind of remind you where we are in time, and compared to the Wave 1s always who are one step ahead. So the Wave 1s today have their roadmap seminar, you have your strategy seminar. In April you will have your roadmap seminar, and the Wave 1 cities will not have a seminar, and then there'll be a final seminar in June which will close the project. But I'll go back to the dates at the end. So, key concepts and definitions. What is the roadmap? The roadmap is basically the practical document with which you will implement the strategy. So there are two parts of the roadmap. There are the activities, so concretely, what will you be doing? And there's the governance, so who will be managing this strategy in the future, or as soon as possible. Monitoring indicators. So monitoring indicators you're going to be looking at in this step and in the next step. They're useful because they're going to help you to basically monitor the progress and the success of your strategy in relation to the priority objectives that you have set in the step 2. The priority activities are the actions with which you will put in place your strategy. I'm going to give some examples of what an activity can be, but if you were in your peer group sessions yesterday, you might have had Wave 1 cities already present some activities that they've been doing. So it can be something like, design a digital program in a school, or it can be provide funding for a cluster which is involved in digital activities. They are very concrete things that have a budget and a time frame and people who are directly implementing them. So we're really looking at the concrete aspect. Yes?
Question. They were named as pilot actions, not priority actions yesterday. Is it the same thing?
No, it's not the same thing. I'm just going to get to the pilot action. So the priority activities, you've got a whole list of them. So you can, when you do your workshop, which I'm going to talk to you about, when you do your workshop, you should, think of 10, 12, 13, 14 activities that you would like to put in place. The pilot activities are a selection of that long list of activities, which you will try and put in place as soon as possible. So even when the project is still happening, so in the upcoming weeks, or in the upcoming months. And I'm going to tell you how you're going to, define what those pilot activities are going to be. And then the strategy governance. So this is maybe the more technical part, and also the aspect with which we've seen Wave 1 cities struggle a little bit. It's hard to put together a governance strategy because it's hard to give people responsibility or more work for something. We've found that usually the thing that works the best is to use the people who are already attending your workshops or who you've been working with since the beginning of the strategy and try and involve them. So of course there must be, a high-level political appropriation of the strategy, but then the people who do the work on a day-to-day basis and the people who feed the strategy over time can be stakeholders and members who have attended your workshops. But we'll go into more details on the governance a little bit later. So this is, I just realized you can't see the slides. Sorry about that.
this. The WebEx. No, because the WebEx. No, that's not. Or we could close the WebEx. Yeah.
Try to exit and then can you just click and drag to the other screen?
To the other screen?
Do you have two screens going?
No, this isn't. This is not connected at all.
But this is a reflection, or it's
No, that's connected to this.
So it's an extended screen, right?
Yeah.
So can you get out of this and then move the PowerPoint to your extended screen without the full screen?
I don't know where my extended screen is.
Shows the wrong
Okay. Can you just tell me if anything's changing on the...
Yes, that is changing.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Are different things appearing on the screen?
Yes. Yes, yes. Now it's connected to the screen.
Yeah, but now I can't find my slides.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry about this. When did you stop seeing the slides? Did you see any of the slides?
Just the
no?
first one. Just the first one.
So yeah, I will send you. You'll have this presentation anyway, so you have the link and you'll have the definitions, so you can go over them privately on your computer. As I was just telling you, we were going over the definitions. So what the roadmap is, which is activities, governance. What the monitoring indicators are, so how you monitor your the success of those pilot activities, the priority activities, so a long list of 12, 14 activities that you want to put in place, and then your pilot activities, so the ones that you're going to choose to sort of kickstart your strategy, so the most important ones to begin, and then the governance. We do want to stress that as the project is coming to a close in a couple of months, it's really important that now the cities really appropriate themselves the strategy and that they start to do a lot more of the work. So the expert is still here to help you and to provide general structure and advise you, but the city should really be doing the bulk of the work. So wave cities and fellow cities, of course, but wave cities specifically. This is kind of just a timeline. So as you see, it's kind of a tight agenda because you have to start thinking of your workshop basically as soon as you leave the seminar, because you need to set up the workshop over February. So we ask you to fix a date as soon as possible so that you can be writing the roadmap report end of February in March for a hand-in March. So as you can see, it's really over the next 2 months that you're going to be writing this roadmap, and you need to start thinking about when you're going to be meeting with your city as soon as possible. What is an activity? So we had Wave 1 cities tell us that...
Can you go back?
Yeah.
So we have a meeting with the city representative on the one hand in February. So we discussed, we identified the list of priorities, and then so we draft a report. And we have a workshop with a larger audience, correct, in March.
Yeah.
To fine tune or to maybe identify other activities, and then we find another report.
You don't have to do 2 workshops for this step 3. There's one roadmap workshop which you should do in February, which is the moment where you brainstorm on the long list of activities, and then the city is supposed to, you know, choose the pilot activities and to draft the report. There's just one workshop for this step. But at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you the dates and the deadlines, so for the workshop and for the handing of the report. So just to give you some concrete examples of what an activity can be. So here we have a couple of examples which, you know, might be relevant to your strategy, like launching a corporate project, organizing a networking scheme, developing a data portal. This one might be a little bit more difficult to implement, as usually these things take time. But it's just to give you an idea of what kind of activities you should be looking for, and that they're supposed to be, you know, not very long. We don't want long description of activities. We want maybe, you know, a couple of keywords and just a sentence to explain what kind of activity you'll be looking into.
One question.
Yeah.
When we define activities with city, okay, when a city defines activity, how to implement the strategy, does it need to reflect also the budget?
Yes.
So
yes. I'm gonna show you exactly how you should be thinking of the budget.
Yeah, because some of the, you know, in the city budgets, the things are fixed, and now we come with the short-term, mid-term activities, and then it's necessary to combine it with already existing plan of the city.
Of course.
So what would be your advice?
If you have to link it with an existing policy or an existing program, for example, because there's no more available money, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So do we have something in extra budget?
I mean,
for 2019, I'm speaking 2019. So
yeah.
I'm very pragmatic at the end of the day. Yeah.
It's actually a good question to ask Wave 1 cities, because I guess it depends on your city management. It's quite an internal thing. There's no general rules on how these finances are implemented, right? I'm assuming some cities, you know, vote on their budget at the end of a year, some in the middle of a year. Like, I don't know how it happens for different cities. But maybe ask what Wave 1 cities when we have the next shuffling session, and say, you know, how have you decided on budget if sometimes you're just outside of the voting period. But yeah, you have to be thinking about this. I don't have a, you know, an easy answer to this question, but I would advise to talk to Wave 1 cities. And we can discuss it in the peer review sessions, but it's a good point.
Thank you.
So we help you to kind of think about your activities with this kind of template, which we call the fiche, and it's in the roadmap Word document. So it's basically for you to fill in. So you've got, you know, your activity title at the beginning, then you've got the link to your operational objective, a short description of the activity, the time frame. So very important, is it, you know, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, a year? It's for you to decide. The estimated cost and the source of funding. So to go back, this is very important. We really do want, I mean, if not a specific number, at least an estimation. The feasibility. So I think this is also important, because you can have this great idea for an activity and, you know, realize that it might be difficult to put in place, and you really want to keep it, but you need to know from the beginning that there's like a red sign or a red flag, and you really need to think of how it's going to be implemented practically. So we also ask you to kind of give an appraisal of how easy or difficult you reckon this activity will be. The priority, so this is in line with, as we were saying, the priority activities. So the ones that you're going to choose to kickstart your strategy, so the most important ones to begin with. And then the organization, so that's linked to governance more generally. It's basically who in the city is responsible for implementing that activity. Does that model seem quite easy to fill in for you? Is it helpful? Yeah.
Yeah, I already had insights yesterday for this good examples how to fill this in and which activities they just wanted to address first. Maybe if you will share the presentation, you just can paste it in
Have an example.
the slides they had.
Okay.
So that we'll have a clear understanding of what we have to.
Good idea. Yeah.
And I have a question about the number. I thought that the both cities I mentioned, they had like 3 pilot activities. I think this is feasible to address 3 in the next years, but 15 to 20, is it really?
No, so 15-20 is like your long list of activities.
It's all.
It's not the pilot. So
The operational objectives, 15 to 20.
we don't recommend that you have that many operational objectives because then you need to have, I don't know how many activities, but it's too much. There's like no set number, but I think we had said not to go over 12 operational objectives in the step 2,
Even
and
less.
already we think it's quite heavy.
Because the operational objectives then should be, let's say, declined, split in activities. So if you have already 10 operational objectives, then you will end up, I don't know, having 30, 50 and more activities. So the idea is to have this, it's a hierarchy, you know. You go from the mission and vision, then you go to an increasing number of objectives and then activities. But let's say it should be feasible at least, limited. We don't put limits, but it's up to you. But just keeping in mind the feasibility also.
Okay, and of this long list of activities deriving from the operational objectives, we will just address like 3 up to 5 pilots.
It's my next slide. I give a very specific indication of the number that we suggest. So, identify 2 priority activities per operational objective. So that's our suggestion to answer your question.
Can I just come back, because in the last academy, you very specifically mentioned that there cannot be more than 6 operational objectives. It was very precisely said.
And then we read the reports and we realized that no one really followed those suggestions.
Well, we did.
Okay, good. Well, we congratulate you. We think that, honestly, the shorter is the better, because realistically, you can't put in place, you can't think about 12 operational objectives. It's just too much, especially for some cities which don't have a budget.
We're just saying don't change the rules as we go.
Sure. Sure. Okay. We try to be flexible. So we give our suggestions, but we are flexible. But this is, so for at least for the step 3, our suggestion after writing the wave 1 reports is 2 priority objectives per operational, 2 priority activities per operational objective, and 1 pilot activity. So this is still the template which you are asked to fill in. The workshop. So for the workshop you organize in February, we give you an indication of the agenda that you can follow. This is just, an indication. So you might want to start with a half an hour, just a recap of the key aspects of the strategy. Then go on for 1 hour on the presentation of the long list of activities that you have thought of. Then you finalize with the priority activities per operational objective that you want to keep. Then you have a discussion on the operational objectives, KPIs. And then finally, a discussion on the governance. So 1 hour might actually not be that long. You might want to give it more time, as it's usually the point that it's quite difficult. So the governance scheme. I find that... Yeah.
Can I just ask, you had an earlier slide where you said you have a big long list of actions. So
activities.
Am I right in saying that you take that big long list into the workshop, and then when you come out, it should be much shorter?
Yeah, exactly. That's when you decide which priority activities you're going to keep per operational objective. That's when you decide. So if indeed the work of having that long list should already have been produced before you go into the workshop by the city itself, and then sent to your expert if you're a wave city, and for some guidance, and then you go into the workshop and you really decide what are we keeping? What are we keeping per operational objective?
Based on things like cost and practicality and achievability.
Yes, yes.
Budgets and,
Indeed, I think it's yeah. So this is actually a template which will help you to pick out which activities you should keep. So as you said, feasibility and potential to immediate rollout is one criteria. The estimated cost of funding is another. How much will it cost? Is it a huge project? In that case, probably best to think of it in the long term. The timetable for delivery. So is it something that we can do in the next 6 months? So those are some indications. But you're free to, think of your own criteria. They can be also technical criteria. Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
Due to the time constraint, can we join like the expertise, because we're still planning, with the roadmap workshop?
Can we join that?
An extra visit?
Expert.
Expert.
Yeah.
The thematic expert.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can absolutely be mobilized for that workshop. In fact, we strongly encourage you to invite them for the workshop.
Yeah, but then the expert, the special expert that is provided by Monopolis coming, so we would join and streamline him into the roadmap meeting with the stakeholders.
That's a good idea.
Yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because by now, all teams should have their thematic expert, if I'm correct.
Yes,
so I don't know how you've mobilized them so far. Maybe you haven't at all. But the roadmap is the point, or at least this workshop, it's a good idea to invite them. Specifically as the activities are supposed to be quite technical. We're no longer looking at like a macro view, but we're increasingly looking at a micro view, so it's a good idea to involve them. So the governance. So yesterday in my peer review session, we had One Wave One City present their governance, Yash, and it was quite interesting as they had really followed this kind of 3-level system where they had this strategy ownership. So like concretely at the political level, the document's going to be signed by a mayor or a high-level politician who is engaged and who agrees that this is, an important strategy for the city. Then you had the steering and the oversight. So maybe, another level down from this politician level, people who sort of come back every 6 weeks or 2 months and who ask how the project is coming along, who have this kind of macro management overview. And then concretely the implementing agents, so the people who are going to be putting in place the activity, the day-to-day management, the reporting, the people who, do the work concretely. So we think that this is a good sort of 3-level approach, and so far it's worked for some cities. Then again, we're flexible and we're also interested in seeing other kinds of models, but it's at least our suggestion. Are there any questions with respect to governance and how you can put in place a governance body? Is it something that's going to be difficult for you, do you think, or is it something that you've already considered with your cities during the workshops?
Talking from my city, it's the city of Nuremberg and it's a fellow city. It's not difficult for us to organize workshops and so on, but we have linked the strategy owner to our Department of Economic Development. So, is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's basically, have you thought about the governance? And it seems that you have, as you've already thought of a department who would be looking over the strategy. But would that department be in charge of everything, or would they have a pilot role, and then maybe you're not from that department, right? I don't think. So you would be managing the day-to-day activities of the strategy? Is that how it would work, or do you not know yet?
Yeah, actually we just invite all the other subdivisions to our workshops, and the subdivisions but themselves are responsible then for the actions. So.
Okay.
You mentioned Yash, I'm also from a city, from Romanian city, Arad, and those like this, it's only normal to strategy is approved, signed for one by the mayor and approved by the local councils. So we have this obligation, we do this before our strategies, all our important documents. We put them for 45 days, this is according to the law. We put them for transparency to be consulted by the public, and then the local council approves. And we also have in place, also by the law, monitoring strategies, the strategy monitoring departments. But we intend, along with this monitoring, strategy monitoring department we already have, to put in place a special department for the digital strategy.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it is just like any other strategic document.
Yes.
But sometimes the ownership or the approval of this, the importance of a digital strategy is not so common for some cities. So it's just important to think that in the long term, how will you manage it? And after the project is over and we no longer meet every 3 months, how do you keep the dynamic and how do you keep a structure that puts the strategy in place? Are there any other questions on governance? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This section that you're requiring for such a section of the report in terms of governance, extension, how long?
The extension, sorry?
The month? How long has to be the section?
In order to be included in the report, yeah.
5 pages. It's not very long. No. So actually, going back on the thematic experts, we did think of in the roadmap how important it was to include them. So we do think that if you haven't yet mobilized the thematic experts, now is the time to reach out to them and to invite them to the next workshop, and even to get them to review the deliverable that you will be submitting for the roadmap chapter. So definitely reach out to them, and if you have any difficulties doing so, don't hesitate to tell the management team.
On the thematic experts, do they have budget to come on site?
Yes, yes. Usually, what we have been also communicating to the lead experts. Some cities have only 1 expert. Some cities have 2 or 3, and we usually advise that 1 expert travels to the city for the workshop or other meeting. So 1 expert usually.
We have 3 hours and 1.
Yeah, something. It depends a bit on the priority area, and this is something that. It's up to each city team, of course, because the thematic experts are expected to contribute, but of course they can contribute only for some of the areas of your strategy, because they have a very specific expertise. So the idea is that you involve a bit more the expert in the thematic area where either you have some gaps, you really need support, you need more support.
I understand, but we have 3 thematic experts in my city, and we need them all. We invite them all and they come. Is it so?
We have not foreseen that, but we can discuss separately, on a separate basis, usually.
Because if we are to bring 1, we should start with that in mind, the discussions.
Yeah.
We should say, look, we don't know, we will bring 1. If we are to bring 3, we will start the discussions with them accordingly. So you say it's better that we plan for 1 to come.
Yeah, this
were
what
we don't want to start the discussions with them and then them saying, we don't have budget to come. You understand?
Yeah, yes.
So what should we do? Should we start to invite all of them to the city, or should we aim for 1?
I think you should aim for 1, and then you see how it is working, if it is enough, and if it's really supporting your strategy. But these are the instructions also that we have given.
Because the thematic experts, they have the same number of days allocated to each city. So even if you have 3 thematic experts, some other cities just have 1 thematic expert. So it would be unfair if one city could bring 3 thematic experts to their city and the other cities just had one expert who would come over. So I don't oversee the thematic expert business, but I would think that you can only invite one.
So we can invite one along with the lead expert, or
along with the lead expert.
Yeah, along with the lead expert.
Because if you have
and the support expert, yeah.
Unfair, to continue bringing.
No, the main expert.
So, just maybe to close the presentation and for the upcoming deadlines to be crystal clear, even though you will get email reminders from us in the upcoming days. So the first version of the strategy report that you submitted before the seminar, if you're a wave city, it's under quality control, and it will be handed back to you as soon as possible. It might already have been done. We asked you for the new version of your report by the 11th of February, so please note this down in your agendas. That's sort of like draft version 2, and then we will ask for the final version by the 15th of February. With respect to the roadmap workshop, so as we said, it needs to be organized before beginning of March, so during February it must be done. And we ask you to also communicate your dates of workshops as soon as you can, once you know them. For the roadmap report, it's to be submitted before the 18th of March. So basically, if you can, you organize the workshop mid-February, you start writing after that, and you hand us in the version before the 18th of March. For the 5th Academy seminar, which just concerns the Wave 2 and the fellow cities in Brussels, that's the 8th and 9th of April. For the online monitoring conference, to be organized between the expert and the city, so this concerns Wave 2 cities, we asked that to be done before the end of April. As for the final draft strategy submission, it should be done before the 30th of April, and the final strategy document should be submitted by the 24th of May. So between the 30th of April and the 24th of May, there'll be a kind of review, if you're a Wave City, by the management team. We'll give you back the version, there'll be discussions, and you can submit a new version by the 24th of May before the final Academy seminar in Brussels on the 5th of June. Yes?
Can we see a little the definitions here? You say submission of the first line says submission of your updated strategy definition report.
Yeah, so that's the report that you were just writing for the step 2.
Okay.
That's the strategy report.
And what does it contain? The strategy definition report.
Well, it's definition of your strategy. So
we have that in the assessment report. The assessment report contains, isn't it so? Up to now, Wave 2 cities, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
We have submitted the full assessment report, which at the end contains general vision, ambition statements, operational objectives, and some initial KPIs. Okay, not the actions here. What is the strategy definition report? And what is the, you say, at the end, roadmap report to be submitted by 18th of March?
Okay, so the step 1 was the assessment. That's when you did the SAT, and that's when you did the mission and ambition. Okay, that
and
was
operational objectives.
No, that came later. Operational objectives was the end of step 2. So what you did over the last month between October and now, you were doing the strategy definition.
Yeah.
And you remember you were supposed to give a catchy line. What's your strategy?
Yeah.
That's a strategy report. What we're asking is.
We have included that in the assessment.
Yeah, but now we are going to
But the assessment and the strategy are 2 different things. It goes assessment, step 1, strategy, step 2, roadmap, step 3, and final strategy, step 4. Okay? And which is also why I mentioned at the beginning that your assessment report should be a separate document from your strategy.
Yeah.
Okay?
So there are, anyway, I think you already sent Morgana, or will be sent again, the links to the 2 reports, the assessment with the chapters, so you can see exactly what to put there. and the strategy. So you can see exactly, and this is the material that you have already created, just reorganized and finalized.
Okay. Yeah. And you say strategy definition report, and then you go on into the real strategy.
That's just the final deadline. So if you want to send us a new version for the quality control, we have a look again. We eventually give you some comments, but the final version is 15th February. That's the final deadline. And I think Pierre is coming to tell us that
there is
10
more minutes
for the breakout session.
Exactly.
Are there any more questions? Yes.
Yes, the roadmap report is 18th March, and the workshop can be after that.
No.
It should be
before,
because it's for you to build the.
Yeah, but you have a mistake on the slide. Before end of March,
Wait,
you said.
you are not showing.
It's written before end of March, but you said end of February. Fourth line, third bullet point.
Yeah. Yeah, true. End of February.
End of
So,
February.
End of February.
And some previous slides you had March on if you go back, there was some table where was said that the roadmap workshop on March.
Yeah, so like what we ask is when you leave this room and when you talk with your city, you fix a date for February. So the roadmap workshop is February. And you're handing in the roadmap report mid-March. Okay? We'll make sure that it's crystal clear in the email that we send after the Academy seminar.
That is a very tight schedule for
It is.
We know.
We know that it is.
We know.
There's a carnival week and everything.
This we can do before end of March, but not before end of February. No way.
I mean, if you think about it, the final Academy seminar date is already set, and it's the 5th of June. If we, give any more time, everything it just falls behind. So we know that it's a tight schedule, but then again, you'll.
Well, workshop mid-March and then 3 days for the report. Maybe that's better. A couple of weeks extra.
We do ask that the workshop happens in February. Really, we stress that it's important that it does happen in February so that you can meet the deadline of mid-March to submit the roadmap chapter.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Just one comment on that. We scheduled in the city of Rijeka the first week of March, because this was the fastest way around the semi-workshop. But it's not end of February, that is the 4th of March.
So it's 4 days later we can make an exception.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Although you're showing a bad example if I start saying yes to deadline extensions.
So it will be 4th, and then if you have enough time to finish, I will maybe send you by a date, mid of 18th of March.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, as you know, for the previous steps, we've never set, we set specific deadlines for the report hand-ins. So it's really up to you. It doesn't give you much time for drafting your roadmap chapter if you're organizing your workshop 2 days before the deadline of the roadmap report. That's why we say give yourself some time. Organize the workshop in February so you have more time for drafting and you're not rushed for the deadline on the 18th of March.
Yeah, it also, if I may add, I mean, I understand that organizing a workshop is also difficult because you need to have the availability of the people that have to be present in the workshop. Now, this is ideal, and the workshop is really useful for you to draft the roadmap. Otherwise, you can find other ways, like doing some preparatory work in not workshops, but some separate bilateral meetings, whatever, and so have the workshop a bit closer to the deadline, just as a kind of validation workshop, I would say, if really not possible. But it should be kept for sure before the deadline of mid-March and with enough time. But just you can have some flexibility and see how you can use it. That would be my suggestion, because I mean, of course, we understand that it's a very, very, very tight schedule.
5th of June.
Is the final conference.
Final Academy Seminar.
A conference, no, it's the final conference. Is a general conference. Yes.
Brussels, yeah.
And the 5th Academy Seminar is going to be hosted where?
Brussels.
Brussels as well.
Brussels.
Monday and Tuesday, right?
I believe, yeah.
So people will have to travel to Sunday.
Yes.
Not like previous ones.
No. Any more questions? Because I think we
we
need
have to
go.
close.
If not, don't hesitate to come see me individually for any other questions. Thank you very much and have a good peer review session.
Thank you. Okay, so here we have now the...
Yeah, I need to find
Pia?
the agenda.
Pia was here. Here there is group 3 peer review session. We have...
Confirm the name of the group. So group 3, you stay here with Borris, Algeciras, Sofia, Alcoy and Reggio Emilia.
Reggio Emilia, yeah.
Reggio Emilia together with Valentina
and Pia.
Bensfield, Rijeka, Taoufik Arif and Gelsenkirchen just follow Morgan. Downstairs, Granada,
I saw the deadlines very clear. We are a little bit late because we have some nothing in mail, and I think you will. We have problems with the team. Well, right now the team is still fresh. We are running fast in terms of what we try to do. But for the next stage, well, I saw that the strategy report it's an instance of what we have done already in this assessment report regarding strategy. Basically, it's step 2 with a more focus. Is there a template for strategy report?
Yes.
Every yes, because we have a problem because we are not having access to the chair.
Okay. When is the meeting with Jacek? Today. Okay.
Today.
We have a meeting with Jacek. We will show you on SharePoint where you can access all the templates for the reports that you need to hand in.
Okay.
Okay. As for the dates, that's up to Jacek to see what kind of arrangement we can have. Obviously, we have hand in the roadmap report, the 1 month that we haven't been written strategy report. So let's look at Jacek. Definitely Jacek is open after deciding how this is going to work. But rest assured that there are templates all through the report.
Okay.
Including the strategy.
But it's very dense, the reports, or it's light
20
report?
pages.
20 pages?
Yeah, but it's not so much about it's more about organising a workshop and coming together with people, your stakeholders in the community, defining
Because we have a problem with that because we haven't already we are going to do it
and that
first or second week of February. Yes, for sure.
change right? End of November, I believe. Or already end of January. So the report should be organised this month in the upcoming month.
Yes.
Mine, your strategy in the room, I don't know how to come out of it. But if you want to stay on board, this needs to be okay? Let's have a look. I forget what time we agreed on, but I'll be there and I'll show you on my computer. So we should start now? Okay, why?
What I try to say, I think, is, of course, we understand that the experts can be useful and so on. On the other hand, they have only basic experience. So my point is I didn't want to tell everybody because, you know what, if you meet them, it's excellent. are only a sick decision, not just, immediately reachable. They have to. So my question is also, if you make all of them small decisions, it's done. Their support is done. So what you will get from them is just to make a meeting and say something.
Actually, it's correct.
Yeah, so
Better to get it right.
Okay. Just my suggestion.
Something else before I go. Do we need to do something with our boarding passes?
Yes, you were supposed to give me your boarding pass.
I have a boarding pass.
Yes, because these
But I have everything electronic. I can send it. Okay. So this is you collect.
No, right now is the peer reviews. So I don't know which group you're
Okay.
in.
The reimbursement, okay.
I'll see you at lunch.
So I give you this.
Give me this.
Morgan, I
The
have.
boarding pass, right?
Yes.
You are collecting them?
Yes. I've been collecting
You
others.
want me to collect that?
Send it by digital?
Yeah, they send a physical, but it's happened that I have a physical. Usually I have no physical at all.
I have only my